constituents, and Mr. Moran is aware of this, is that it's okay. It's not great, it's just okay, because what they'd rather see is a development that looks similar to the rest of the neighborhood. For example, if you're familiar with the development near Ridge and 4th Street, it's fantastic. It looks like the rest of the neighborhood. This, no one said it was great, and I'm being absolutely honest with you. So it's okay, and that's just it. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, it's not like they're very excited, and Mr. Miranda, that it's happening, it's developing, it's going to be fantastic in terms of you're going to fill up that lot and all that. But that said, no one's excited about the facade, especially. But no one said oh, he hate it, but it's kind of just there. So, and I have some constituents here, I'm sure, who'd like to speak. Oh, maybe, okay, let me get, all right, hold on.
Other comments from commissioners?
When this came to committee last week, I think parking was a big issue, which we are not considering this.
Yeah, we got that, we're on the,
I just
continuing
said.
discussion.
Don't let me finish. I think the other item that was presented was the fencing, and people were not too fond of it and asked you to look at some other options for that. And I thought there was one other thing that we talked about at committee. Do you?
Dividing up the front yard so that they read as...
Right, so it looks like 2 separate yards instead of 1 big yard. Those were the things that came up at committee and that were discussed in depth. And as long as those things are being considered, I'd be fine with it.
In your design packet, there's an updated image of what we're proposing for fencing.
Oh, okay.
And we do intend to treat both yards as 2 yards,
Okay.
so they read as separate lines. And last week we just had another meeting with Historic where we worked further on the fencing on the historic property,
Okay.
which is very similar to what's there now, which is the rounded wrought iron
Very good.
low fence, which is in your packet.
I'm trying to find what page that's on.
It's on page
This is-
34?
This is the old.
Oh, is that the old
Yeah.
one? Sorry.
I don't have the new one in front of me. I thought,
Yes, most definitely.
That's okay.
It's back towards the back of this one.
as long as those things are being considered, I don't need to necessarily.
I only have 31 pages, so
That's okay.
Well, I mean, we could show you all of this big board right here. What we did was, there was an existing fence around the property as is. It's a little bit falling over at the moment. It has a rounded, sort of historic look to a lot of the wrought iron that's in the neighborhood. So we were going to use that around the historic building itself right there. And then there's a little bit of a modern fence over here. And in order to divide that lot, we changed the elevation so that one of them, the modern addition, reads higher than the existing one, just for a little bit of separation there. And I think that's what we brought up in the committee meeting, just to sort of address that.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so I have some constituents in the room who would like to speak.
I actually live directly across the street from the building, and I really love the design. Sorry for not
That's
posting on
okay.
Facebook about it.
That's good.
But I actually think it's a really great transition. That block is sort of in the shadow of the giant Yale sort of quasi-faux industrial look, and I really like that it sort of provides, I think, a nice transition into the beautiful row houses of M Street, and I think that's a really cool design element. I really would like looking out my window every day at it, especially since right now it is an orange monster.
Commissioner Gore?
I don't. I have such a problem with this, and I love modern design, but when you have a whole block of, you know, beautifully old houses and a lot of different houses. You know, it's not a block that has
You're right.
everything the same. There's so much, that's what everybody likes it. So when you come up with this stark, excessively modern building, and I know, you know, somehow historic preservation, they kind of seem to like that, whereas if you put in a regular building, they give you all kind of things that you must do, you know, to be specific, where you'd like to take it, to change a little bit. They won't allow you to do that. They want you to, you know, have the exact same glazing and, you know, doorways, and then you come up with all this glass. And I think at the end, we're not gonna have the same, and I know it looks beautiful, but you're not gonna have the same look of that block that you have already. And I think this block is really, and I'm surprised that, you know, HBRB, because I've been downtown, they love this block, you know. And when you change it so dramatically, if you look on Ridge Street, it did not add anything to Ridge Street when we have that modern building that were even more extreme than what they put there, you know. Now, they went and tried to, you know, bring it together, but it still doesn't give that cohesiveness, you know. And I've seen some modern buildings, but this one is so extreme. I love glass. But you know, I live on the block, house across the street, you know, the big house. You know, tell me why so extreme, you know.
Well, at a certain point, some of it is expression, and I agree with you, it's a wonderful block and a variety. You can see the development over time, especially towards Fifth Street with the houses that are set back from the street, and all the different types of architecture. And for us, we interpreted that as, let's build the infill up today. What would we do today in our style, instead of replicating another time? And we thought that that was an added value to this street, which has a great character. You can see the development, history in the architecture. So 50 years from now, when someone looks back at this street, this will be a component of that history as opposed to something that from another time.
But it doesn't match. You know, my only thing is that I feel that these things don't match, you know, when you put it in such, you know,
Good
the
comment.
glass comment, you know, I mean, just, I could
understand.
see something that could go a little bit more, but when I look at this and I'm like, wow. You know, the little house next to it, the white one, then you have, you know, the glass 3/4 up and then, you know, some more glass over top of it. You know, and I looked at a lot of them around here, you know, Susan Dreddick's stuff that she's put all over the place, you know. And afterwards we look at it and we're like, God, you know, do you have any more cinder blocks, you know, and glass? It's not necessarily, you know, it's interesting. And this is much more interesting than that stuff, but in the end, I just don't think that, you know, we end up with the best for our block.
I have another constituent in the back.
Thank you.
So I'll just say Eastwood Pastorella. So you have 6 units, correct?
That's right.
And the current zoning says you have to have 4 parking lots? 4 parking
No, we're
spaces?
not dealing with the parking
Well,
this evening.
I'll talk to you later about the parking.
Oh, okay.
We-
So
yeah.
since that wasn't.
It's an ongoing story.
Oh,
That
it
wasn't
It
a
is
a
ongoing.
design issue.
As for the
So did you
design,
have a
but-
design?
Well, he's got design comments.
Yes.
He's got design
As for
comments.
the design, on 4th Street, they did a great job with the brick. So I think you should encompass more of the brick and less of the glass. I mean, I live on Ridge Street, and I have to look at that at the end of the street that she put up. And then on N Street, I look out the back and see the glass. And it doesn't fit with the neighborhood. You could tone it down, with more brick, it'd be great.
Last comment.
I represent a building right to the east of that, and I think the front elevation here is great. I like the contrast, and it'll be good for the block. But however, I have some issues with the design behind the building, which I've shared with Patrick already, and I hope to come to solutions. Because as of right now, the design will destroy the private courtyard that we have behind, next to your building.
All right.
I have one more comment about the glass, the whole, with a lot of these other glass structures, we have the front, like Farm Ridge and all that, the common thing is, literally, no one has their blinds up. Okay, so like, I've been walking around this neighborhood for now 3 years. I was shocked the one day someone had their blinds up. I literally stopped and was like, oh my gosh, and they're having a party, and that was the only reason they had their blinds up. So, kinda like the big, I mean, what turned out when people live there, they actually don't even seem to enjoy the big windows, which is sad. So,
So it's important to note that the Historic Preservation Review Board doesn't insist on or recommend cookie cutter historic replicas of buildings in historic districts. They actually encourage modern design. They've given a number of awards, design awards for infill development that has been modernist, but that focused on using the same fenestration, window patterns, the same materials to make them compatible with a historic district. So I will pass this back to Commissioner Nigro for motion.
okay, I motion that ANC 6E not support the project as is now, taking in other recommendations, for example, more brick, et cetera, to be more in style with what's currently there on M Street, because M Street is a very special street.
I'll second the motion. This, in terms of my personal architectural preferences, I think this is great to incorporate some aggressive modernity into a historic block, but this is one of the best preserved late Victorian blocks in the entire District of Columbia, not just in this historic district. So I'm going to, I have supported my colleagues' recommendation that we ask the Historic Preservation Review Board not to support this particular design, but to have the staff work with you so we get something that will better fit into this very important block. So, any other comments from commissioners? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to
It's not
continuing. March, I'm sorry?
It's not unanimous.
I'm sorry.
So,
So nay for you?
nay for me.
Okay. So that's 5 to 1 to 0. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to 455 I Street. This is a case that I alluded to earlier where a developer is asking for a 2-year extension of a previous Board of Zoning Adjustment approval for a mixed-use development. This is Equity Residential's project. If we can have Mr. Utz and my colleagues come forward.
Background.
Very brief background, just so that the community understands the context.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. This project is at 455 I Street. It is currently designed and has 95% construction drawings for 174 apartments and approximately 2,200 square feet of ground floor retail. It incorporates the historic renovation of 2 townhouses and the blue and white warehouse that you probably all are familiar with on the east corner, and a 3-level parking garage. So we are here today asking for an extension for a few of the variances, which we are happy to explain, Mr. Utz, if you want to know what those variances are. So there will be no changes to those variances, no changes to the existing design. We're merely asking for an extension.
Exactly. Hey, I'm Jeff Utz with Goulston Stores. Thanks for letting us come and speak with you this evening. As Commissioner Padro referenced earlier today, this is immediately adjacent to the 5th and I Street RFP parcel. So this kind of gray fluff box over there is the project that we just talked about in here. You all supported the approval of the EZA case about 2 years ago now, which we really appreciated. It's for 4 variances. There was 1 closed court variance for kind of this area right behind the 2 historic townhouses because of the metrics of the kind of physical constraints that we inherited didn't meet the standards of the zoning regulations. Similar relief was granted for lot occupancy. Here it's DD-C2C, and that limits a building to 80% lot occupancy. For the first 3 levels of the building, we're at about 90, the mid to low 90% lot occupancy, and then above that, once there are no historic structures, it opens up to be compliant with the lot occupancy. And then the third area is roof structure relief. Because it's historic, we actually step down the roof structure where possible so that it's not of uniform height. Being of uniform height is a requirement in the district for roof structures, so that's the third area. And the fourth area was FAR relief for this kind of legacy historic lot, lot 876. You're limited to 6.0 FAR for each historic lot. This was kind of a form over substance relief that we just asked for because we were already before the BZA, and actually the Office of Planning didn't think we needed it, but we didn't want it to come up and be problematic during the building permit process. So we went ahead and asked for it. That relief was granted and the order was issued on January 20th of 2012. They're good for 2 years, so it is currently 12 years. We applied for the 2-year extension in January 8th of this year. So we would ask for your approval, and we're happy to answer any questions. As Ben referenced, it's not a change to the project at all. It's just a 2-year extension because of the kind of dramatic supply of residential in the area that's both been constructed and is under construction, but then also several other reasons, including needing to kind of figure out what's going to go on to the adjacent parcel through the DMPED RFP process, and also clearing out the alley behind this structure is jammed in with a bunch of construction vehicles constructing the building to the north of the site, so it actually would be physically difficult, if not impossible, to build this right now. That's basically the overview of the kind of our reasoning. Yep. Thank you.
This site is in Commissioner Maceda's single-member district. We'll report out the committee report and then make a recommendation. If you want to make a motion, we are pressed for time.
The people in my community made comments about it being the last of the rundown areas, and we talked about this at committee. And so committee met last week, and we had a conversation, and we recommended that we offer a 1-year extension, and with conditions that they beautify the site a little bit, and we've talked after that, and I've received emails saying, they would be doing some certain things, fixing the roof, making the windows, fixing the doors, again, making sure that the snow and ice is removed during this crazy winter we've been having, and that we agreed at committee that we would recommend a 1-year extension and hope that this project would actually get started before they'd have to come back to us and ask for a further extension. So if there is no objection, I will make a motion that we extend a 1-year extension with hopes that you guys settle your issues and whatever you have to do to get started before a year passes by. And that you meet the conditions that we talked about the other night, fixing up the building a little bit and making sure that you make a donation to the CID if they're going to be cleaning up the neighborhood, then that gets done.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been duly seconded, and Alex, what do you ask?
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve, recommend a 1-year extension of the BZA relief for this project. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Moving on to site around the corner at 923 to 925 Fifth Street Northwest. This is a proposal to establish an outdoor beer garden on the empty lot that is behind the facade of this site. This would be the second Dasha Beer Garden in ANC 6E's jurisdiction, the first one being at 1600 7th Street Northwest.
Hi, my name is Ilya Alter, this is my partner Dmitry Chikaldin. We came here to ask for ANC support of our application to APRA for a Class D beer and wine license. We operate a Dacha Beer Garden, which is located right now at 7th and Q Street. We're a neighborhood bar and establishment that is kids friendly, dogs friendly, and we are very popular with our neighbors. And right now we are looking to bring this concept to Mount Vernon Triangle area. We are planning to take a property that is located on 5th Street between K and I. Right now it's abandoned and condemned property that had a fire and now it has a collapsed roof. It has a historic facade that the city would like to preserve, which we are going to work with and preserve that facade. Our beer garden is going to be all behind that wall, and it's going to be comprised of inside space and outside garden green space. Unlike all other proposals in that block, we are not maximizing FAR. We're actually looking to not build anything, but just to provide a green garden where people, neighbors can come and enjoy their summer days.
The Commission's ABC Licensing Committee met with the applicants last week, and it was determined that the recommendation to the full commission would be to support a tavern license for Dasha 2 at this address. There were some concerns raised about possible noise transmission that could be heard on the upper stories of the residential building across the street. So one of the requirements will be that a voluntary agreement be entered into between the proprietors and the commission, which Commissioner Maceda will follow up and ensure execution of. Would you like to make any further comments, or did you want me to make a motion?
Well, before you make
Okay.
the motion, I think everybody can hear what I have to say. They did hold a meeting at 555, and their main concern was noise, and they feel, at least from the committee that came back to me, that our voluntary agreement that we have used for the other facilities in that couple of blocks probably will eliminate that problem. There were a couple of very negative, again, noise complaints from with thoughts that from City Vista, from the people on the 5th and K corner upper floors who would hear that noise as well, and they were just totally against you being there. But I think in general, with a voluntary agreement and the layout and how you set up the garden will alleviate some of that noise issue, and everyone is in favor of supporting, at least the people I heard from, supporting the project.
So my concern is the noise again, and I voiced this to Marge. Not only from the 555 Mass, but what's the new building, Marge, that's coming up behind it? What's that name? The brand new building?
Lyric?
The Lyric? So, I mean, you guys are great. I know that you guys, you certainly understand your product and all that. But the fact is, I'm not really sure you're gonna be able to control the noise. If your plan is to have up to 300 people in that space and to have music, I just don't see it being controlled. I mean, unless you say, okay, we're gonna stop the music at 8:30 or something like that, because I mean, great premise, but I just don't think those people on either the new building and the 555 Mass, they're definitely gonna hear it. I mean, there's no way around it.
This is a valid question, and this is this concern that we had when we were opening, from our neighbors, when we were opening our first beer garden. And we worked with the neighbors, and now they're our best patrons and supporters. We understand the concern. We will hire a sound engineer to ensure that we quantify the level of noise that we will commit to. We will ensure that it's important that we will our structure, which is will be one floor structure, will be in the back of the lot, so it will be where that new building is coming up, and the garden is going to be kind of behind the wall, closer to the Fifth Street versus the back of the lot. And with respect to live music, we plan to have live music during the day, not in the late night. So
You're sure of that? Like,
absolutely, and we're not planning, we're not planning to have dancing. It's more of kind of a jazz slash folk band, folk music that we're thinking about in our programming.
And that would be included in your voluntary.
Absolutely.
So-
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, unfortunately, we are pressed for time, so we're going to have to cut off discussion on this. I'll try to incorporate the additional recommendations that are coming from Commissioner Maceda. So I'm going to move that Advisory Neighborhood Commission 6E support a tavern license, both stipulated and permanent, for Dasha 2 at 923 to 925 Fifth Street Northwest, contingent on the signing of a voluntary agreement covering especially noise issues related to the establishment, and that there be a limitation on the entertainment endorsement, that live entertainment cannot be provided after what time?
8 o'clock?
After 8 p.m.
We can discuss that further.
And that we would communicate that to the Alcohol and Beverage Control Board and the Alcohol and Beverage Regulatory Administration. And I would ask for a second.
I'll second.
So we properly moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. That's 5, 1, and 0. Thank you very much. Moving on, 717 N Street Northwest, Immaculate Conception Roman Catholic Church will be celebrating its 150th anniversary this May, and they are planning a community block party to celebrate, and asking for support for street closures in order to accommodate that. Commissioner Williams.
To save time, I'm just going to make a motion. I move that ANC 6E support Immaculate Conception Church in their endeavor to celebrate 150 years of service to the community. The block party closing 7th and N to 9th and N, as well as the north side of 8th and N, pending DDOT approval on the days of 5/17/14. Ask for a second.
Just a
Yes.
one friendly amendment that we communicate that to the DC Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've already moved in second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. 1400 7th Street, and I will have Armand Bacal come up and give a very brief update. And I do apologize to Mr. Lansing that we did not ultimately take you in the order that we had asked, but Armand.
Thank you. I think I'll be fine without the microphone, and I will be very brief. City Market at O is the project that spans between 9th Street and 7th Street, O Street and P Street. And the update is our grocery store is open, and I hope that everyone has been there at least a dozen times to shop. We're very pleased with that. We're starting to move residents into the residential portion of the building. There are 4 residential buildings. 3 are under construction. And the 4th one we are planning on starting maybe as early as this fall. We're kind of learning from what we're finding out what the market is for the existing buildings. This project, as many of you know, has been a long time in the making. Although it's privately owned land, we treated it as a neighborhood resource, and we worked quite a bit with the ANC and the community, and we participated for a long time in the Office of Planning in their strategic neighborhood plan. And we promised that when the Giant store closed in November of 2009, that we would deliver to Giant a shell of a store within 2 years so that they could get their store, I'm sorry, in 2011. That we would deliver to them a shell of a store within 2 years so that they could start their build out. 2 years later, the store actually opened, so we were ahead of schedule. We promised the community that we would build affordable housing. Affordable housing was important, especially to people who lived in the neighborhood for many years. A lot of longtime residents in the surrounding buildings were concerned that as the neighborhood was changing, would there be a place for them? So we promised the city we would build no less than 78 units, and we'd make them available to people 55 years of age and older, so an active adult community. And our partner, Dante's partner, Cooler Beniti, came up with a great idea how to make that work, and we wound up building 90 units of housing for active adults that are affordable to active adults at from 50 to 60% of AMI. Those will be delivering this spring. We've got a lot of people interested on the list already.
And the website is up.
And the website is up.
The website was live as of today.
Yes, great. So you can see what the units will look like. We promised the city that we would contract with local businesses. We promised that at least 35% of all of our contracting would be with local certified business entities. And I'd like to report that right now, I think we're pretty close to 100% of all of our contracts have been let, and we're running at 53%. I'm very proud of that. Susan, why don't you talk about the jobs?
We saw that there was a big gap between the number of jobs offered by Clark Construction and the number of people who were lining up over the top 1,400 at our construction trailer. So we contracted with Living Classrooms. So we had a RFP process, and we ended up hiring Living Classrooms. About 2 classes have gone through, and of that 50 students, and of those, one outstanding student is at Columbia University now in New York, and then others are at Clark Construction right now. Someone's at the VA. We've managed to get a lot of those people working, and then there's 8 laborers that are working for Clark right now that we are taking back through Living Classrooms to work on